Hi guys, my name is Christine and I'm a dating, relationship and personal development coach. Today I'm talking about behaviors that destroy romantic relationships, okay? So this is a relationship advice video, and these are some things that you kind of want to avoid doing when you are in a romantic relationship in order to have a happy one, a healthy one, so that you can have a successful long-term relationship that also keeps the magic alive. Because a lot of complaints that I get from men are that their wives, their girlfriends are no longer interested in intimacy and things like that. And a lot of complaints that I get from women about their husbands or their boyfriends is that they don't listen, and they, basically pretty much that's the main one, that they don't listen. So let's get into a few things that can really help solve a lot of these main issues that, could actually potentially lead to divorce and things like that. And we don't want that. Like, we want less broken families as possible, basically. It'd be a better world if we could all realize our differences in relationships and to nurture those differences rather than attacking each other for those differences, okay? So let's get into the first thing that can destroy a romantic relationship, and that is not having date nights, okay? I have a strong belief that the way that you keep your partner, is how you got your partner, right? And how you got your partner is how you keep your partner, right? Essentially, right? So if you look back on your relationship and you think back to the time when you guys first met, when you was in that honeymoon period, what are the things that you did during that time? How often would you go out? What kind of activities would you do together, right? How would you talk to each other? How would you communicate to each other? How would you hold each other? Those kinds of things, right? And try to get back to that place, especially with the date nights. Like, what did you guys used to do when you were younger, when you first started dating? What are those things? And then get back to that place, right? So you want to be able to have a date night. Obviously, the ideal is to have a date night once a week, right? That's a good ideal, right? And in that date night as well, you don't want it to be the same thing every single week, right? You want to shake things up a bit, do something a little bit different. Don't always go to the same cinema. Don't always go to or watch the same kind of film. Don't always go to the same kind of restaurant, right? Go somewhere different. Go try out new places, right? Around where you live, if you haven't been to a pub or a restaurant before, go and try out that one. If there's something that's new in your town or where you live, go and try and do that with your partner as well, right? So there are many things that you can do, and just to experiment a little bit. Sometimes, let's say your typical date night, what you do is you go out for a meal and then you go to the cinema, right? Just shake things up a bit. How about go to the cinema first and then have a meal afterwards? Or don't go to the cinema at all. Perhaps you go out for a meal and then maybe you go somewhere else for like a couple of drinks, or you go to a different restaurant for some ice cream or something like that. Go to somewhere else for dessert, right? So that's a good thing that you can do. So shake things up a bit. Don't always do the same thing and things like that, okay? And when you do go on these date nights, put in the effort. Dress up, right? Do how you would dress and how you would present yourself if you were going out on a first date or a second date with someone that you really, really like, who you're really trying to impress. So make it fun. Dress up and put in that effort, right? So as I was going back to, having a date night once a week, I know that's not, or sometimes almost practically impossible for everybody, right? Especially if you've got kids and you've got other commitments and things like that. So, maybe you might not be able to do it once a week, okay? But maybe you can do it once every 2 weeks or something like that. Or it might be the case that you have a week where actually you've got nothing going on at all and you can go out twice a week, right? So you want to shake things up, make it interesting, because maybe there's a case there, you have a whole month where you just cannot date each other, but then you've got a really lovely clear week where you can perhaps go on 3 dates with each other or something like that. But ideally you want to try and you don't want to leave too much time in between when you go out and go on a date with each other. And your partner will love you for it because you're putting in the effort, you're trying to plan things, and and things like that. So you got to remember to date each other and continue to court each other. So just remember the rule that the way that you got your partner is how you keep them, okay? So keep that in mind. So Another thing that can destroy romantic relationships is if you start to become too similar. And sometimes you can see this when you're out and about. You see like a couple and they're kind of dressing the same. They may even sometimes even have the same kind of haircut. The woman has become more masculine. The man has become a little bit more feminine and things like that. And they've become essentially roommates and they're no longer romantic lovers. When they go out to eat, instead of sitting in front of each other, they sit side by side. People who sit by side, just remind me of like two old men who go out fishing together. Like they're buddies. They're not romantic relationships. So whenever you go out, whenever you go to dinner, whenever you're eating with your partner at home, make sure that you are sitting in front of them, okay? People who sit side by side look like pals, right? And if you are acting like buddies, then there's not going to be any intimacy, essentially, right? You need to have that romance, and to be able to give that one-on-one time as well, but I'll get into that in a second. So it's having like these polarity problems as well, where the man has become more feminine, the woman has become more masculine, because they've basically spent so much time together and they've become so familiar with each other. They've started to take each other for granted and they're no longer putting their best foot forward. And essentially, like I said, they've become friends, right? They've become roommates instead of romantic lovers, right? So there can be a lot of polarity problems, right? Where the guy stops doing his thing, the woman stops doing her thing, kind of separately from each other. And then they become like best buddies. And that's essentially what kind of kills the romance of it. That kills the attraction, right? There has to be polarity. Okay, so if you're a woman that is really feminine, if you've got a wife that's very feminine or a girlfriend that's very feminine, then you need to make sure that you stay masculine, right? And keep on doing your guy things, keep on dressing the way that you've always dressed, and basically just continue to carry on with that masculinity and to not give that up and to not become her buddy, basically, right? And it's the same for women. If you've got a masculine boyfriend, right, and he's very much a guy's guy, then you've got to make sure that you keep to your femininity, keep on dressing feminine and things like that. I'm not saying you need to do this all the time, but you especially need to put in the effort on those date nights, okay? Very important that you do that. So becoming too similar and the polarity disappearing, because what causes the attraction in the beginning is the man is really attracted to the woman's beautiful femininity, and the woman is really attracted to the masculine, strong leader and his energy, right? That's what causes that attraction. And it's the same not just in heterosexual relationships, but in gay and lesbian relationships too. There's usually one, in every couple, there's usually one that's more feminine and one that's more masculine. And as long as you keep those roles, right, and how you dress and how you act and how you speak and how you, conduct yourself, things should stay on track when it comes to the attraction. So you will never lose the magic. You will never lose the intimacy if you keep up with that. Okay, so get those things in check too. So the other thing that can really cause and destroy romantic relationships is no presence, right? So let's take the example of a man coming home from work and he sits there and he watches TV, and the woman comes over to him and she says something like, "Oh, you don't spend that much time with me anymore." And he gets confused because he's like, "Well, I'm home. We're here in the same house. We might even be in the same room," right? And he gets confused, like, "What do you mean I'm not spending time with you? I'm right here," right? But what she means by that, and what a man might mean by that if he's getting the same kind of reaction from a woman, is that you're not having one-on-one time with me. You're not facing me. You're not looking me in my eyes. You're not talking to me, right? Instead, you're watching TV or you're doing something else, and you're trying to maybe talk to your partner and watch TV at the same time. What she wants and what he wants is they both want that one-on-one time. I think women need it a little bit more than men, but at the end of the day, you've got to have that one-on-one time where you kind of really sit and speak to each other and have a conversation. It doesn't have to be a long time. It can just be for like 10 minutes a day where you just sort of like stand in front of each other or you sit in front of each other and you look into each other's eyes and you have a conversation, right? And things like that, right? And you really pay attention to what the other person is saying. What a great analogy that I discovered recently was something that Brian Tracy said. And he said, like, imagine when you're giving someone one-on-one time, it doesn't matter if it's a friend, it doesn't matter if it's one of your kids, it doesn't matter if it's your partner or someone or a client or a customer, right? If they're talking to you, they're the most important person in your world at that moment. And what you want to do is you kind of want to pretend, right? You want to pretend that this person doesn't have much time left, right? I know it's a bit morbid, but it really helps you focus on them, right? So you got to pretend that, let's say, this person is going to pass away soon, and you're the only person who knows about it, right? That's the kind of attention that you want to give them in those 10 minutes when they're talking to you. You want to pretend like this could be the last conversation you've ever had with them, right? You've got to have that sense of, like, because that will make it an important, that will make sure that you're giving them your presence. Because I don't know if you've ever had someone really close to you that has passed away. I have. I remember when my grandmother was passing away, like, I would be giving her so much presence when she was in the hospital, and whenever she was saying something, I was listening to her so attentively because I was kind of trying to absorb, all the things that she was saying. So, so I would remember it, basically. And you kind of have to have that same kind of energy, right? When it comes to when you're talking to your partner. And that's something that I learned from Brian Tracy. Okay, so I think that's a great way that you can stay present when you are talking to your partner or anyone, right? Because it's not only your partner that needs your attention, it's your kids too, and it's your friends, and it's your other family members, right? Don't let these moments slide with them, okay? Because you only get a finite amount of time with people on this planet, and you need to appreciate them while they're here, because they're not going to be here forever, right? So it's really important that we learn, all of us learn that lesson, right? Because I sometimes mess up on that too. I'm not always 100% present with my wife, but I try to be, right? I really do try to be. And, if you're trying, maybe sometimes that's just the best that you can do, but at least you're trying, right? So another thing that can really destroy romantic relationships is lack of communication, right? And not knowing how the other person communicates. Now, I've spoken about that quite recently on my channel, so I highly recommend that you go and check out some of my other relationship advice videos that I've made quite recently. But essentially, the things that I've learned and the things that have worked for me, I got from a book called Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, which really helps you to understand the opposite sex. So if you're a man watching this, it'll help you understand women. And if you're a woman watching this, it'll help you understand men and how they communicate, right? So if you really want to know how men and women communicate and what they need, right, then I highly recommend that you get that book. You'll be able to find it in the description of this video. And it'll be in my recommended books. There's in the recommended books, there are 5 books on relationships and dating, and the other 5 books are on personal development. You should be able to tell which ones are which by the titles. But Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus is a book that's been around for years. I think maybe it came out in like the 80s. I think maybe in the 80s or the 90s. Anyway, it's been around for ages. So I'm sure you can find a cheap version of it in like a thrift store or a charity shop or something like that. Or you'll be able to find an old copy of it online, so you don't have to buy it through those links, because the books I have in those links, right, are affiliate links. So if you do purchase a book through that, I will get a small commission, but it will be of no additional charge to you. But of course, you can still just write down those titles on a notepad and just find them alternatively somewhere else. But if you would like to support me, that's a great way of doing so. So thank you very much. So Men Are From Mars and Women From Venus is a great book, right, to discover how to communicate effectively with your partner, right? And it really helps you understand the opposite sex, okay? So another thing that can destroy romantic relationships is letting yourself go, and also like getting stuck in routines, okay? So letting yourself go obviously means, not working on your appearance. You stop exercising, you stop going to the gym, you stop eating right. And a lot of people do this kind of thing anyway when they get into relationships. They start getting happy and, because they're all settled and they're really happy and content in their relationships, and they put on a bit of weight and things like that. Which is just sometimes just like just the consequence of being in a really happy relationship, because you're always together, you're making things together, you're making meals and things like that, spending a lot of time together. But when, you have to keep in check your appearance and things like that, and keep on putting your best foot forward in that kind of sense. And it goes for both couples, right? Sometimes the women stop dressing up as much and things like that, and the men don't keep themselves groomed as well, and things like that. So you sometimes see that quite a lot in romantic relationships. But if you want to keep the magic alive and you want to keep your partner attracted to you, right, then you need to make sure that you're keeping your health in check and making sure that you stay active and healthy, and keeping up with your appearance basically, and making sure that you keep on dressing nicely, having a nice haircut, keeping your hygiene up and things like that. It's really important. So another thing that I discussed as well just then was getting stuck in routines. I kind of touched on that a little bit already. with you know, going out on dates, you know, going and doing the same thing every day and all that sort of stuff. Every date that you have, you know, we go to the same cinema, we go to the same restaurant. You know, don't do that, right? Don't get stuck in routines. And also, don't get stuck in routines when it comes to your weekends. Now, of course, during the week, Monday to Friday, you know, you're going to have a routine, especially if you've got kids, because kids need routines. But on the weekends, you're pretty much free as a bird. At least a lot of people are, because most people work Monday to Friday, right? So on the weekends, you've got that time to do something spontaneous with your family, or with your girlfriend or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever, right? So do something different, you know, go like look on Google Maps and see if there's like any interesting parks you could go to, any new interesting restaurants. You know, is there any like new shops in town that you can just go and look at? Because you don't have to do something expensive. You know, you could, like I said, you could go to like a park that you've never been to before. If there's like some nice scenery or a nice lake or a nice canal you can walk down or something like that. Or, you know, perhaps there's like I said, like a new shop that's been opened or something like that, and you go and look in there. Or there's been like a new department store or mall or shopping center that's been created, and you want to go and have a look there. You know, you don't have to do anything too expensive, because you don't have to buy anything, right? But if you do have the money, you do have the wealth to do so, then go out to new restaurants, go out and do different things, go out and see different things, go to new places, right? And just, you know, shake things up a bit and have some spontaneousness to your relationship, okay? And, you know, because I'm pretty sure, you know, if you suggest any of these things to your partner, they'll be really happy to go along with that, right? And happy to go along with you to these new things. Like, hey, you know, do you want to do something on Saturday? I saw that this new place opened up. We should go and check it out. Or, hey, you know, I was looking on Google Maps and I saw that there's this park that we've never been to. There's this, you know, this trail that we've never been on before. Should we go and check that out and go and have a look at that on Saturday? And, you know, most of the time your partner will be like, yeah, sounds good. That sounds fun. Right, and you can even turn it into a little date as well, or a little family date if you've got your kids with you as well. So you can change it into a nice little family get-together sort of thing, right? So these are some things that can destroy romantic relationships, and the remedies, obviously, that I've given you as well. So I hope this video has helped you. I hope it will keep that romance alive. It shouldn't take, if you feel like the romance has died in your relationship, if you keep on doing these things, it won't be long before the romance picks up again. Right? It may take a few weeks, but if you do these things, it won't be long before your partner will want to be intimate with you again, and things will start to resolve itself. But you've got to give it a bit of time, right? Especially if you've been doing these behaviors for a long time, right? So you've got like a bit of momentum there. So, but if you keep on doing these things consistently, if you keep on doing a week in, a week out, then eventually you will get the intimacy back, your relationship will be back on track, and you'll start to be a much more healthier, happier relationship. So thank you so much for watching. If you would like to get in touch with me personally and you would like coaching with me, then please go to www.christineloveridge.com. I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye.